In episode 2, Yennefer and Ciri are on their way to Aretuza, but it's just going to take some time to get there. There's also the whole matter of, well, Yennefer's not really welcome there anymore. So to warn Tissaia that she's on her way, she sends her a letter, knowing that it's going to take some time for that letter to get to Tissaia, but also it'll at least give her a heads up to mentally prepare for Yennefer's re-arrival. Ciri, though, is going through some difficulties because she's having these visions, these very vivid visions. It's blurring the future with the past. Like, she's envisioning how people die, and she wants to change it. She wants to warn them. But Yennefer tells her, you can't do that. This really frustrates Ciri, because she feels like the whole reason why she has these visions is so she can make a difference. But Yennefer, knowing all too well how changing one thing can impact thousands, doesn't want her to do anything. They continue on their way, and Yennefer stops by an old friend who's able to create portals. She knows her from Aretuza. They both were kind of kicked out of there. That's why Yennefer's friend, Kira, is really surprised when Yennefer says, I need a portal for Aretuza. Because Kira knows exactly what happened the last time Yen was there. Before they can get the portal, though, a guy comes in with a large amount of money asking for his own portal. But he also seems to have a prisoner. And when Ciri looks down at this poor kid, she sees how he dies. He's going to die if he goes through that portal. So Ciri just instinctively cuts him loose, tells him to run. And the man who wanted the initial portal gets pretty pissed off that his prisoner just escaped. He wants to kill Ciri. And Yennefer ends up killing him first. But Kira lets both of them know, you guys just made a horrible mistake. That is one of Huvinagel's men. If you don't want to get decapitated, you'll get the hell out of here. And Kira conjures a portal of her own and leaves. This really annoys Yennefer, who warns Ciri about doing something like this. But Ciri just doesn't understand the implications. And the more that Yennefer tries to explain to her why you shouldn't do such a thing, Ciri gets more and more annoyed. Until finally, Ciri crosses the line and says, what would you know about trying to stick up for your own life? Because there's only one side of Yennefer that Ciri knows. So Yennefer looks at her and says, okay, we're going to make a detour, and I'm going to be brutally honest with you, and I'm going to show you my life. And she takes her to the location of Yennefer's first home, where she grew up, and she's able to show her the life that Yennefer had, proving to Ciri that yes, at one point, I did in fact have to stick up for my own life. She then lets her know that she, at one point, let one soldier go, and now the whole continent is paying for consequences. So, the message is, ignore your visions for the time being. They both continue to make their way towards Aretuza, where they have a new teacher, Triss. She's taken to teaching the new mages. But as they all sit in their towers teaching, they know that there's a war raging on the outside. So the council kind of convenes quickly to talk about what they should do, if they should get involved or not. One person who's really frustrated is Stregobor. He puts all the blame on Tissaia, saying that she promised Ciri and she hasn't delivered, and if they want to resolve these issues, they'll just find her and kill her. Both Triss and Tissaia, however, fight back on that, saying that's not how they do business. Later that night, Tissaia ends up getting the letter that Yennefer sent, and her and Vilgefortz just sit down and discuss it, whether or not they think it's a good idea to welcome her back. Vilgefortz points out that this whole conversation, though, is pointless, because Tissaia has already made up her mind. He knows that she's going to welcome Yennefer back, and he supports it, because if Yennefer can forget the past, then he will as well. Tissaia then mentions how she's going to meet with Yennefer before she gets to Aretuza. She's going to surprise her and make sure that Yennefer isn't bringing any bad news their way. Some people might consider a Witcher bad news, but the Witcher, along with Jaskier, give Codringer and Fen a visit, because they need to find out where Rience is and who's hired him. They give Geralt a pretty quick summary of Rience, just that he was kicked out of school, and that just supports the theory that he is in fact working for somebody else. As for who actually is calling the shots, they tell Geralt they don't know, but Geralt simply run out of money to get that kind of information, so it's actually unclear if they do know. But what they do tell him is whoever is pulling the strings is doing his business in this castle not too far away. Right as Geralt is leaving, Fen says, "Oh, do give our best to the Elder Blood Princess." And that stops Geralt right in his tracks because he never mentioned Ciri once, just that Rience was trying to kill a friend of his. Geralt walks back in the room up to Codringer and says, "You have a client looking for her?" And Codringer says, "Istrid." But Fen pipes in and says, "You have to know, he isn't the only one willing to pay. If you want to save her, you need to find another girl." Geralt isn't about to do that. He and Jaskier start to walk out, and Jaskier starts floating the idea about Redania, saying, "Let's brainstorm some ideas on how to keep her safe on the way there." And then he realizes Geralt's not taking him with him. And he gets really pissed off at that because he almost died for the cause. But Geralt says, "I can't protect you, so you're going to have to sit this one out, and when it's safe, I will come after you, Jaskier." So Geralt takes off to go to this castle, trying to find out any information he can on this mage, while Jaskier headed to Redania. He wanted to meet with Radovid. He tells Radovid that Geralt didn't have enough money to find out who Rience is working for. But Radovid, being a prince, he does have that kind of money. So if Radovid were to pay them a visit, find out the location, find out where Rience is, kill him, it would lead to Ciri being in Redania. Radovid vows to look into it. Once Jaskier leaves, he heads to dinner, where the king is once again waxing poetic about some story everybody's heard multiple times. But he tells both Dijkstra and Philippa what he had to say about Codringer and Fen. The information that he's bringing them brings up a point that Philippa was trying to tell Dijkstra earlier in the day, that they can actually use this guy. He's not just an idiot. Philippa leaves the table saying she's going to have to pay them a visit. This gives Dijkstra an opportunity to tell him that Philippa seems to think he could be of use, but he's not so sure. And Radovid says, "You have to realize everybody in this room is hiding something, including my brother. I know that you think that Vizimir doesn't hide secrets from you, but did you happen to know that he had a meeting last night with Nilfgaard?" And no, Dijkstra had no idea about that. He doesn't get a chance to tell Philippa this because she may have gone to visit Codringer and Fen a visit, but she shows up too late because Rience got there first. He knows that the Witcher was there, and he demands to know where the Witcher is headed. Once he gets that information by threatening to burn their cat alive, he does it anyway. He sets the entire place on fire, and it would be a shock if those two senior citizens made it out alive. It's not really going to matter, though, because Geralt had arrived at that castle, and he could figure out it was a trap. It basically was a mad scientist's experiment room. You had these three heads jutting out from the wall, and then a monster of all of their limbs. One by one, Geralt had to kill all of them. But then there was something else in the corner. It was a girl who seemed to be closed in by this sort of embryo, but she looks a lot like Ciri. She also doesn't know how she got there. Once Geralt is able to defeat this monster and get her to safety, he asks her, "Who are you?" And she says, "You know who I am. I'm Ciri." And that freaks Geralt out. And then finally, we get an update on what happened to Cahir and Frangilla. Frangilla was made to be a poison tester for the White Flame, but she ended up faking her own death and escaping. While Cahir, he was forced to, just like many others, attack caravans. And Cahir was actually the one who Gallatin went to go visit. That was the old friend that he wanted to get help from. Gallatin tells Cahir all about his issues with Francesca and about how Francesca is so wrapped up in finding this girl. And as soon as he says that, Cahir knows exactly what he's talking about, but he doesn't let on. He doesn't say how important Ciri is. He just lets his friend ramble on about how Francesca is botching this whole thing for them. Cahir always told Gallatin that he should be in charge. So now, Gallatin's going to take him up on the offer. But they have to get approval from the White Flame first. Thank you so much for checking out this recap. Please consider subscribing to the channel and subscribing to my Patreon. Hit thumbs up if you liked it. Smash that thumbs down button if you thought it sucked. If you left a comment, I don't get back to you. I usually don't check the comments unless they're like a super comment. Also, if you don't see the next video up on the end screen, not to worry. It'll be up in a day or two.